Greetings, and thanks for joining us for another bi-weekly update. My name is Carlos Salinas, and I'm the Regional Director for the U.S. Soybean Export Council in the Americas. A pleasure to have you with us. This presentation is designed for USEC key customers like you and for USEC internal purposes. I hope that you find it of value, and please continue to send us your feedback so we can improve this presentation. Before we get started, and as we always do, we like to recognize our wide and diverse membership. As you well know, within this membership, we have soybean processors, soybean exporters, seed companies, equipment manufacturers, railroads, surveyors, among many other very important stakeholders and funding sources. And we never forget the support and the contribution that we receive from the U.S. Soybean farmer. Without that support, this presentation and many other initiatives that we have would not be possible. So we have a brief agenda today. I want to talk about the basis or the cash evolution of the origins, that is the Americas and South America, and CNF China for soybeans and for products. We want to see the price evolution over the past 4 weeks. And see where prices stand today versus some of the historical ranges that we had seen before. We want to talk about new crop demand, quality, and we'll finish with a quick update on our agricultural trade mission that took place in Bogotá, Colombia last week. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we talk about basis in South America, particularly in Brazil, I do want to highlight something very important, and that is the exchange rate. 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about basis levels, the exchange rate in Brazil was about 570 to 571 reais per US dollar. Now, when we talk about the exchange rate, we're close to 546, 547 reais per US dollar. So certainly the currency has appreciated. If we take a look at the changes since the beginning of the month, we've seen an appreciation of about 5%. This is obviously not good for the Brazilian farmer. Not only are they also struggling with lower prices for their products, but all else being equal, a stronger Brazilian real means that the Brazilian farmer is receiving less reais for their bushel or metric ton of soybeans. So at the same time, I think it's important to recognize that over the last 12 months, we know that the Brazilian currency, the real, is very much depreciated. But this recent change is obviously an important shift to keep in mind. And not sure what the future will bring, but the currency is always important to keep in mind, as it will impact the dynamics on Brazilian production, economics, and also farmer selling activity. Let's talk about soybean basis in Brazil. 2 weeks ago, we saw bids for the September window close to 105 over the November, with offers about 120. Now we see bids for the same window at 115 over the November, with offers 140 over. And I think the October window is no exception. Those bids are also about 10 cents a bushel higher. And clearly, when you talk about October, the fair windows, there's really little liquidity in Brazil. Not much volume being offered, so there's no sellers available today for that October window. I think it's important to keep in mind. When we take a look at soybean meal, we also see an appreciation on soybean meal basis in Brazil. This is again for the 48 Pro Fat pellet, not the high pro. The 48 Pro Fat pellet, it was bid at 12 over. Now we see bids around 22 to 24 over for those windows. And the offers have also gone up about $10 a short ton. So a very good uptick on the meal leg. And we have to keep in mind, as I said, this is 48 Pro Fat pellets. When we look at the high pro in Brazil, the high pro trades at a premium, an additional premium, is like an additional basis over the 48 Pro Fat pellet. And again, those premiums have also gone up. They were bid 2 weeks ago, about 20 over the pellet value. Now they're bid 23 with offers around 30. So again, strong, a good strength on the high pro meal market. Now, let's take a look at the soybean oil. Soybean oil has seen also a very good uptick. We've seen the values that were bid 2 weeks ago for October window 100 under or 80 under. And certainly those bids today are close to 200 over to 150 over the December oil contract in Chicago. So certainly I would say it's 150 point appreciation on the basis, about $55 a metric ton. Funny enough, the basis appreciation has been stronger than the break that we have had on December oil over the last couple of weeks. So the basis has offset and by more than the December oil has broken in Chicago. I think it's important to keep that in mind. As we take a look at CNF values, and we take a look at the information from our friends in Ag Commodities, we see that for the September window, U.S. Gulf values as of August 15th were at $443 a metric ton. Brazil was slightly higher, the August at $445 and September at $446. So we know that U.S. Gulf is already competing at fairly good levels. However, the PNW, it's very interesting because we see PNW being very competitive with prices around $436 a metric ton for October. Certainly a good discount compared to the September and the August windows out of Brazil. I do want to highlight that we do see a cheap number out of Argentina. We have to keep in mind that Argentina is not really a significant soybean exporter. That offer is likely for just a few cargoes, not for the significant volume that Brazil has to export or the U.S. Has exports as well. So again, I think my takeaway is that the U.S. is competing fairly well. And naturally, we see business moving our direction at the same time, which we'll address in a few more slides. Now, 4 weeks ago, we gave you a rough idea of what the historical price evolution had been for this time window. I want to go back to some of those numbers and see where we stand today, given the recent changes. Again, these are facts. This is data, no opinions. So let's take a look at soybean meal. And if you remember, 4 weeks ago, we said that between July 23rd and August 23rd, there was little seasonality on soybean meal prices. They have gone up 45% of the time, and they've gone down 55% of the time. And when we take a look at the ranges, soybean meal had gone up as much as 18%, and it had broken as much as 11%. So the question is, where do we stand today? And today, the price of soybean meal has broken about 5%, very much within the range. I wouldn't call it an anomaly. It seems to be reasonable. And we cannot discount that in 2008, we saw prices break even more and then recover, closing about 1% to 2% higher compared to where we started, specifically, again, for the window between July 23rd and August 23rd. I'm not saying that will happen or that it will not happen. I'm just telling you that once we start breaking those historical shifts, or we have significant shifts, there's always a lot of volatility, and we have to be very cautious and understand where we're coming from, where we are today, to measure that risk. Let's talk about soybeans. Soybeans, we see 4 weeks ago, we said there was a very little seasonality. Prices for this time window, again, between July 23rd and August 23rd, had gone up 50% of the time, and they gone down 50% of the time. And we knew the ranges for this time window, prices had gone up as much as 15%, and they had gone down as much as 9%. Soybeans are breaking that range today. They just were down 11%. That being said, in 2008 we were down 15% earlier in the month. So, but I think it's important to keep in mind. And again, as we look at 2008. We saw that significant break, and then we saw a recovery or a rally where soybeans ended up being down 4% for that specific time window. Again, I'm not saying this will happen or will not happen, but I think, again, it's an extremely good discount compared to what we have seen before. And it seems like a great opportunity. My recommendation to many of our customers is to take advantage and lock in the logistical windows for the reason that we will discuss about here in a second. So let's talk about new crop demand, which I believe is very important to keep in mind. It is no question that our program is behind compared to previous years. According to the data from the USDA, we got 5.8 million metric tons of new crop soybeans sold. And that, when we compare to previous years, obviously we're on the lower tier. We have been worse before, probably in the trade war, but today is 5.8 million metric tons. What has happened the last couple of weeks, and I am hopeful that this slope that we're seeing here continues pace and continues to get steeper to catch some of that recovery. But let's take a look at what has happened. And on the very top, you have the USDA sales report as of the week ending July 25th, and at the bottom, as of the week ending August 8th. And China, we were at 162,000 metric tons sold. Today, we're close to 1.1 million metric tons. Again, we're behind, but a very good uptick in the last couple of weeks. When we take a look at unknown is, it's not a buyer. Many people joke about that. Give me the number for unknown because they seem to buy a lot of beans, but these are sales that have been done, but yet the destination not declared for various reasons. And that number was at almost 2.5 million metric tons as of the week ending July 25th. Now it's at 3.2 million metric tons. And all in all, we got 5.8 million metric tons sold compared to 3.5 million metric tons 2 weeks ago. So business is taking place for new crop. I commend some of our customers in the Americas region. I know Colombia bought a significant amount of soybean meal, and very smart move, because they're locking in those logistical windows to make sure they cover their needs physically. Doesn't mean that you're setting the price. You can always set the basis and price later. You can take options protections. But certainly when you see this demand beginning to kick into the U.S., particularly on soybean exports, those key windows will be taken up very soon. And if you don't catch your timing, you may have to depend on or rely on a different window, which may not be ideal for you. So again, my only recommendation would be to step ahead, locking in your logistical and physical supply first. Let's talk about quality, changing gears. And I think it's very important. As you will know, we receive information for a company called Evonik, and they supply us thousands of sets of data to evaluate quality. And I want to share with you the information that we got for July, only for July, on two factors. First, we're going to talk about trypsin inhibitors. As you will know, trypsin inhibitors are an anti-nutritional factor on soybean meal. We process soybeans, we heat them under pressure to reduce the amount of trypsin inhibitors. So the meal can be actually digested, and the protein can be digested by the animal. And I want to share with you some of the numbers that we got from Evonik on trypsin inhibitors by origin. And let's take a look at Argentina first. This measurement, if I'm not mistaken, it's on milligrams per gram. 3.19 milligrams per gram is a measurement, and we see Argentina with a higher level, the highest level of trypsin inhibitors. When we look to Brazil, comes in second at 264, and the U.S. stands out for having the least amount of trypsin inhibitors for the month of July. This is the meal that you will be likely be consuming, depending where you're at, in September, maybe early October, when it arrives to the destinations. So keep that in mind as you make your decisions. Again, it's great to have high protein, but if that protein has a higher level of trypsin inhibitors, which will impact your digestibility, it will have negative consequences, certainly to the animal and to your growth rate. So again, keep that in mind. Another factor that I always like to review, and this is the data again from July, is a KOH. KOH is a measurement of digestibility. And when we take a look at the KOH, we see certainly that Argentina has a number very close to 77%, Brazil 76.5%, and the U.S. stands out certainly with a number of almost 78% KOH. Again, it's great to have higher protein, but if that protein is not digestible for the animal or not as digestible to the animal, at the end of the day, what are you paying for? And I think U.S. soybean meal certainly gives you higher digestibility. Not only we see that on the KOH, but we also see it on the lower numbers of trypsin inhibitors. Again, with third-party data from Evonik. This is not USEC numbers. This is third-party. Changing subjects and moving completely a different direction. Last week was really a very good week. We were in Bogotá, Colombia, with joining the agricultural trade mission that was led by Undersecretary Alexis Taylor. We were very pleased to have two of our grower leaders join us. Mr. Brad Doyle, former chairman of the American Soybean Association, a current director, and Mr. Brent Randall from the United Soybean Board representing Oklahoma. And they had a chance to spend a little bit of time with the undersecretary and stakeholders and associations. Here I'm sharing some of the pictures that we had. They had the opportunity to meet the ambassador and the ambassador's wife, Mr. Paco Palmieri. We also took the opportunity to meet different associations, stakeholders, customers, partners, and I'm very thankful for all their time. I do want to call out a special thanks to Mr. Oscar Botero from Piscícola Botero, which participated in a panel talking about the advantages of the free trade agreement that the U.S. has with Colombia, highlighting the growth on the exports of tilapia, fresh tilapia from Colombia to the U.S. As you all know, tilapia consumes actually quite a bit of soybean meal within its ration. I do want to thank the Foreign Ag Service, both in D.C. and in Bogota, for a great organization and great support in this mission. I want to thank Andy, Laura Pasculi, for hosting us at her office, Bungie as well, our friends from Seaboard, FENAVI, the Colombian Poultry Association, and Grupo Bios, which allowed us to visit their facility and their feed mill. We're very thankful for all their contributions. And now we are in San Francisco. We're going to start SoyConnext soon, so I'm sure I'll get to see many of you here. And I hope the information shared here was of value. Please, again, continue to send us your feedback so we can improve this presentation. Thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you in a couple of weeks. Have a great week.